I'm National's Deputy Leader and Finance Spokesperson. It's really important to National that we're connected with our regions, and this area of the country is obviously an absolute mainstay of our exporters and our what we produce as a country. So I've been at the Exporter Awards, been visiting businesses this morning, hearing their concerns, what they think needs to change to make the country go better, and talking to people in this region about what they want to see from government. So it's been a great visit. Well, the awesome thing to see is that we have some exporters here doing incredible work, and there are people all over the world wanting to buy Hawke's Bay products. The challenge is the lack of workers to get those products out to market. So desperate call from the employers that I've spoken to saying, help us get more people out of welfare and into jobs, and help us get some skilled migrants in to keep our businesses growing. Because with that growth, we'll be able to pay more wages, we'll be able to provide more profit into this community. We think addressing the worker shortages is one of the best things we can do to deal with the cost of living crisis the country's facing. First, we've got to deal with the fact that despite there being record job vacancies, there's around 50,000 more people on an unemployment benefit today than when Labor came to office. So we've announced a policy, Welfare That Works, that's about supporting young people absolutely into getting the support they need to get a job, but also saying if you don't do your bit, you will face some sanctions. So that combination of carrot and stick. The second thing we think we need to do is loosen up the immigration settings a bit, to be sensible about that, but also to recognise that when the country's 4,000 nurses short, it makes sense to say that when people come here with those qualifications, they can become permanent residents. If we don't attract them, Australia, the UK, Canada will take them, and that puts so much pressure on existing nurses in our hospital. But that's the same for a range of other professions. We want the immigration department to stop thinking like a police force and to think a bit more like a recruitment agency, bringing in the talent our businesses, our hospitals need to grow and do their work. Well, look, I'd just like to commend the councils in this region for having the courage to share their voice and say, look, we don't think Three Waters is the answer. National agrees with them. We think the centralisation of water utilities into 4 mega entities with multiple layers of bureaucracy and governance and very little community control or community voice does not make sense. We think it's really good that proposals are being put forward as an alternative, because we don't think the status quo is quite right either. There clearly need to be made some improvements to make sure that there is high water quality, good accountability, and that there are the resources being put into that infrastructure for the future. So we're actively considering the options that the councils from this region and around the country actually have put forward as alternatives, and we intend to go into the election with a good alternative to Three Waters, because Three Waters is a dog and we are committed to repealing it. We do acknowledge that there needs to be more investment in water infrastructure across New Zealand, and that may require some changes to current systems to achieve it. And we will be putting forward our principles for reform over the next few months as we get closer to the election. What's critical to us is that the solutions need to retain some community voice and community control, and they need to ensure that there are some high standards, but that also we don't take away that local responsiveness, which is really important. And we think that the Three Waters proposal will actually add a lot of bureaucracy, add a lot of complexity and cost, and remove from communities their power, their voice. Well, I really worry about housing in this region. I know that you have a lot of individuals and families raising their kids in motel rooms. There's a significant number of people living in emergency housing, a very high state house waiting list, and rents have increased considerably. So what I want to see is that actually we're ensuring that people can afford rent by ceasing the adding of tenant taxes, which this government has done, rewinding some of that to make sure we've got a functioning housing market, working with community housing providers in this region and with iwi and others to provide alternative forms of social housing, because it doesn't look to us that Kāinga Ora, the government state house builder, has been successful or efficient at doing that, or is certainly not as successful as it needs to be, and fundamentally making it easier to build houses. So getting rid of some of the red tape that at the moment makes it expensive and hard for people to get on and build. It's a great question, and I want to tell you I've been asked it a lot by people in the region, and that's exciting because I think what it means is that people are really opening their minds to alternative representation for these electorates, and that I think there's a lot of people wanting to see National able to provide a stronger voice for both Napier and Tukituki in Parliament. So we will open a selection process for each of those electorates in the next few months. I'm sure there'll be a contest for those roles. There are a number of people who want to fly the flag for National and who want to fly the flag for these wonderful communities and ensure they have strong voices in Parliament. So watch this space. Look, our plan is to focus on the issues that matter to people in this region and to offer constructive solutions. I think there's a real sense that things are going backwards at the moment, with the rising cost of living, wages not keeping up with price increases, the lack of workers, the impediments to growth, whether that's upcoming things like fair pay agreements, whether that's the difficulty people have finding workers or getting through red tape. National's commitment is to get on top of that cost of living crisis, bring some discipline to government spending, ensure there can be sensible tax reduction for hardworking Kiwis and their families, get better value out of government spending, ensure our schools and our hospitals have clear targets, are held accountable for them and have the support they need to deliver. And I think for this region, what's really important for us to win is to demonstrate that we will truly speak up for those in the regions, their needs and their concerns, and we won't simply say, here's what we came up with in Wellington, you've just got to put up with that. And I think there's been a lot of that, whether it's Three Waters, whether it's Te Pukenga, the merging of polytechnics. Those things haven't gone down well, they haven't delivered for local people, and National's determined to give communities and regions back the voice and autonomy that they deserve. Well, I think at a values level, what National believes is that we won't improve people's living standards and opportunities by simply dividing the pie into ever smaller pieces. We have to grow the pie for New Zealand, which means growing the wealth and prosperity of our country so that we can give people better incomes, better choices, better services. And the way to do that is not by the government hiring more and more bureaucrats and offering more and more strategies and working groups. It's by backing the amazing businesses, the amazing entrepreneurs, the innovators we already have in our communities and letting them do that. So the way we do that is we do believe in lower taxation. We think that wherever we can, if households, families, businesses can hold on to a bit more of their own money, then they can make really sensible decisions about how they invest it. We also believe that government should be really careful not to get so big that it gets in the way, whether that's through red tape or bureaucracy or simply taking the workers that would otherwise be in more productive parts of the economy. And we very much believe that there's a role for ensuring that while there need to be rules about how business operates, that actually we don't get in the way too much. So we've put forward a 5-point plan for getting on top of the cost of living crisis. That includes getting the Reserve Bank back focused on a price stability mandate, reducing bottlenecks in the economy, reducing costs on business, bringing discipline to government spending, reducing tax. But fundamentally, our vision is also to drive growth in the economy. So we want to invest in productive infrastructure that enhances growth. We want to invest in innovation. We want to make it easier to get capital and investment into New Zealand. We want to make it easier to access science. And we want to have an education system that equips people for the jobs of tomorrow. So our vision is a wealthier country where people have more chances to get ahead. Yeah, I think this is a really critical point because National absolutely wants to increase investment in long-term infrastructure that we need to deliver the growth and prosperity that New Zealanders expect. But that's quite different from just increasing spending on the day-to-day costs of running government for and of itself. The analogy I'd give you is if you're in business, you think about, well, what are my day-to-day running costs and am I keeping them in check? But what are the big pieces of investment I have to make in my business so that it can be more profitable in the future? Whether that's a new piece of machinery, whether that's hiring a new person. And I want government to think in a similar way. What are the really sensible investments that if we make them today will pay off in the longer run? Now, when you do that, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to be really clear. What are we measuring? How are we going to ensure it's delivering what we said it will? And how are we going to make sure we get value for money? So for me, as the finance spokesperson, there needs to be a change in the way government thinks, away from just saying this is how much we're going to spend because we hope it will achieve this, and much more of an approach of saying this is what we will achieve, here's how we are targeting it, here's how we'll hold ourselves accountable, and this is what you can expect. So for me, it's not just about how much you spend, it's what you get out of that spending. It's about bang for buck, and that's the approach you can expect to see from National. I love this region, and I went to your Export Awards last night, and that was such an amazing room full of people. There was a sense of community, that people in the various businesses knew each other, backed each other, wanted each other to succeed. And it's so uplifting to hear the stories of the cool stuff that's happening, whether it's the businesses in the horticulture industry, whether it's the businesses providing logistics, whether it's the industrial businesses, getting on with it despite a couple of years of real challenge, despite some ongoing challenges, just getting on with it. It's awesome to see, and this is a region that National absolutely wants to back to deliver more of that success.